This is the Emotional Horsemanship Podcast. I am Lockie Phillips, your host. Emotional Horsemanship coaches deeply caring horse people to train emotionally balanced horses with science, empathy, and feel. And this is the podcast dedicated to exploring all of that within. We try to innovate horse training that puts the horse first. Season 2 of this podcast brings us solo episodes, special guests, and small groups of guests as we discuss horses, horse training, the equestrian industry, and the big, beautiful ideas that horses inspire in us always. Our guest on the podcast today is my friend and colleague, Louise Bach-Holler. Louise is Danish by birth, but lives in Spain. She's a hoof care provider and a horse trainer. This is her second time on the podcast. The first time she was on this podcast, she came to discuss the training of young horses with me because she assisted me in preparing my young horse, Oki, to travel across Spain and relocate to me over a year ago. She has also been his hoof care provider since he was a very, very young age before he came to me. So this is someone I've worked with a lot and someone that I really trust to have even difficult conversations with. So when I thought that it was time to have a difficult conversation about something in regards to horse training, I really felt like Louise was the right person to have that conversation with. Season 2 of this podcast is really focusing on going a little bit deeper and to explore a little bit more richly some of the subjects which face horse people. And the subjects Louise and I decided to meet and talk about together today are food rewards in training, clicker training, and the use of sticks and bits. So I thank Louise for joining me because we were able to have a really rigorous discussion as colleagues with utmost love and respect for each other, especially when we had a differing of opinion. Piggybacking on last week's episode, if our confidence with horses is contingent upon their compliance, then we have no confidence. If my confidence in a colleague is contingent upon our perfect agreement, then I have no relationship to them. Louise is someone I have a strong relationship with because I love her when we agree, and I also love her when we disagree. That is unconditional. So thank you, Louise, for joining me. I had a lot of fun doing this conversation, and between you, me, and the fence post guys, I think this is my favorite conversation that I've had on the podcast this season. Not to denigrate anyone else, but for me personally, at a deeper level, this was really, really helpful and interesting for me. Thank you, Louise, and I hope you enjoy it too. I'm sitting here with Louise Bach-Holler for the second time. Good morning, Louise. How are you doing today?
Good morning. I'm good.
Good.
Nice sunny day after a lot of rain.
Yes, we're having a lot of rain in Spain at the moment. Just for anyone who wasn't listening to your first podcast episode, just bring us up to speed with who you are, where you live, what do you do, and maybe how we know each other. Just bring everyone up to speed.
Okay, so I live also in Spain, the other side of Spain from you. So I'm on the east
and I'm
coast.
on the west.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're quite far away from each other, about 1,000 kilometers, something like that. I am a horse trainer, a hoof trimmer, and I was trimming your little baby Oki's hoofs when you bought him from Cara. So she lives not far from me, and I was her hoof care provider and was trimming his little tiny feet. And so you asked me if I would help you with training, with preparing him for the trip he had to go on from one side of Spain to the other in a truck. So we've had a lot to do with each other through little baby Oki.
That's right. That's right. And I feel really, really lucky that you do live close to Tara, who bred Oki, because I certainly couldn't have, spent time on the other side of Spain preparing him for the travel. And to put a 2-year-old into a van with no preparation and take them away from the only home they've known and send them across the country without any preparation was something I just couldn't stand by. So I was thrilled to be able to have you close and know how you train and the way you train, and also that he knew you because you've been caring for the feet. It was really an ideal situation. And then when he did transport, and he transported beautifully, and he arrived in beautiful condition and was really happy and relaxed when he got here. But we actually decided to send you with him because it was a 2-day transport. So you went with him and you loaded him on both days. And you mentioned that on the second morning, if you were not there, something would have happened to him.
Yes.
What would have happened?
He would have been put under a lot of pressure and most likely been hurt.
Whipped.
Yes, I think so, because even though the driver was he was a really nice guy, the driver of the truck, he was a little bit impatient, and there were people coming by like constantly offering their help. And I kind of had to tell everybody, no, please just step back. We've got it. Just let us, do our thing. Because it took a little time. He didn't want to load on day 2, which makes sense. He'd been in a truck for the first time in his life the day before and taken away from his mother and his herd. So it made sense that he was not happy to run into that truck again. And it took a little time, and everybody wanted to help. And I could see the look in their eyes. These people, especially one of them, I remember very clearly, this guy that came up and kind of puffed up, wanted to help. And I was like, no, please just step back. And the nice driver, Xavi, he was very sweet in listening to me, But if I had not been there, I think it would not have been nice for Oki, for sure.
The driver came very well recommended. And I remember sitting on a plane. I was about to take off. I was somewhere in the United States, traveling in between clinics. When I confirmed him, I was sitting on WhatsApp with him while I'm sitting on my seat waiting for the plane to take off. And I'm asking him very pointed questions. I said, do you use the Seraton, the Spanish Seraton? And he laughed. He said, no. I said, okay, I have to ask these questions. I have to ask these questions in Spain. I just have to. I said, do you use whips to load the horses? No, I don't. I said, okay. Do you transport young horses? Yes, I do. He says, usually the young horses, when they transport, the first day is fine, and on the second day, they don't want to load. So he said, he asked me if I would consider doing the 2-day transport in one 12-hour straight line.
Yeah.
And I said, I would prefer that he rest, because 12 hours in a truck, I'll never transport him ever again. He'll never want to get on a truck ever again. And it could expose him to colic risk and all sorts of things. So I said, no, I'd prefer him to rest. But we agreed that if the day 1 of loading went south really badly, that we would decide on the spot to go straight all the way through. Right. And we were prepared to do that. So I sort of vetted him, and he really listened to me also. And when he delivered Oki, he looked at me differently, I think. I'd never met him before, but he didn't just look at me and deliver the horse. He really looked and looked, if you know what I mean. And he looked at my farm very carefully, and he looked at my other horses very carefully. And he watched me unload him very carefully. I think that was maybe a slightly new experience for him.
I think so.
For him to transport a young horse that had been apparently prepared for 6 months, and that was sent with a chaperone who ensured no whips were used.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that Xavi was his name. I think he was a really nice guy. I think
Lovely guy.
Caught up in the traditional horse world, So, yeah.
Well, I think later today we're going to talk a little bit more about sticks and whips in a bit more detail, because it's a bit of a hot button topic. But we've decided to discuss another hot button topic together. And I've asked you specifically to join me on this podcast to have this specific conversation because of everything we've just described. You and I have a history of working together, a history of even disagreeing with each other professionally and respectfully. You and I have a history of respecting each other deeply and liking each other a lot. And you're someone I've hired to train a horse that I love. And I have been looking for someone to have a more tricky conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to give the conversation a title, Louise?
Oh my goodness, I don't know. What should we? No, I think you're better at that.
Well, what's the subject?
The subject is positive reinforcement.
Okay, everyone take a breath.
The good and the bad, or something like that.
Everyone take a breath. Everyone breathe in, everyone breathe out. Ooh, okay. This is a really activated subject for me, and it shouldn't be.
Right.
Because the last time I attempted, albeit imperfectly, but the last time I attempted to have a detailed, nuanced, balanced discussion on this subject, things went south really quickly for me, and it was not a good experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I've spoken about it so many times. I'm bored of talking about it, but it was really ugly and really hostile I'll be clear, from the positive reinforcement community in my direction. It was really ugly. It was really hostile, and it was really uncomfortable. And so I actually don't like controversy,
right.
which I know is, I address hot button topics, but I don't enjoy drama and I don't enjoy controversy. I know you don't either. And so since then, I've completely avoided speaking about it publicly. And if I do allude to it, because I have to, I use very specific language. So I'm not triggering a social media algorithm to present that post towards that community. Right. So instead of saying clicker training, I'll say 1950s behaviorism.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of saying reinforcement, I'll say food-based training. But even then, that's tricky, because the algorithm will pick up on specific keywords and terms and present these posts to people who are guaranteed to engage with it. And they don't care if you engage with it in a constructive or a destructive manner. Right. So it's I'm frankly terrified to talk about it publicly. I am.
Don't be when I'm here.
Well, thank you. So let's do it. Feel the fear and do it anyway. What's your experience with positive reinforcement, with R+?
So I was actually thinking about it before this podcast, because we had talked about this subject and that we were going to discuss it. So I went back and looked at the first book I read about this to see when it was from. And the first book I read about positive reinforcement was called Clicker Training for Horses. And I can see that it was translated to Danish in 2005. And I think that's when I got it. So that's 20 years ago, which is a little
2005 is 20 years ago?
Isn't it?
Is it? It is. Oh my God. When did that happen?
I don't know.
Jesus Christ.
We're getting old. I'm getting old. You're not getting old.
No, sorry. I found gray hairs the other day. So we're all getting old. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, so that was 20 years ago that I heard about it the first time. I think someone recommended me read that book. That's how I remember it. And so I did. And I found it interesting. I thought that's nice. I think at that time I was doing academic art of writing and interested in Klaus Hempfling's work. I think that was kind of where I was at that time, as far as I remember. And so I like the idea of rewarding, obviously, because I like my horses and I want it to be nice to them. So I like that idea. And I remember that when I read that book, one of the first things that I thought was, I don't understand the clicker, though. I remember I understood the food rewards and all of this. I used them already, but not very specifically, I think. But the clicker, I couldn't really wrap my head around. I understand what it's for. I understand the marker signal and making a bridge from the behavior and to the food and all of that. But using a clicker just seemed so mechanical to me, like almost like robotic, like completely without any emotions to it. And I didn't really, that's not, so I didn't really want to do that. So right from the beginning, I chose to use a word, a sound, instead of using a actual clicker. And I chose to use a word that meant something to me. So the first one I started using was dygtig, which in Danish is well done, something like that, means well done. And then later I added another one, tak, which means thank you.
Mm.
So because I felt that if when I want to reward my horse, have a feeling associated with that, and if I use a word that means something nice, that then I have an emotional feeling with it that is good, and I feel that's a good thing. I think I'm sending an energy to my horse. So that's how I saw it from the beginning, and started working with it, and that's how I still do it when I use it now in my training. And I think that one of the things I see when I'm teaching myself and when I see others using positive reinforcement is that it can become very mechanical in my eyes. It can become a little bit. It works, obviously, the horse understands, blah, blah, blah. We can build up behaviors and chain them together and all these things. It works, but it can become a little bit robotic, in my opinion. So it becomes, I think that horses are capable of communicating much more at a much deeper level. And I think that we become very focused on the tool, in this case, the click and reward. And I see the same thing happening with pressure and release, that we become very focused on using the tool that we forget all the other things that we communicate with. Our body language, our inner balance, all of these things. What is the energy like that we're presenting to the horse when we communicate with him, which I believe is the most important thing. And then the other things are tools that we can add to that to be more specific in communication. So that's kind of how I see it.
Mm. In 2021, I wrote a post, I think 2 days before Christmas, about emotion and feeling, and a good feeling, a positive feeling that can stand in for and sometimes even replace food as something that can be equally as rewarding.
Yep.
I made that post thinking perfectly innocent enough.
Mm-hmm.
And then a very good friend of mine wrote to me on Messenger and sent 3 or 4 screenshots. They said, Lockie, you just need to know what's coming for you.
Okay.
I said, what do you mean? And I looked at the screenshots, and the screenshots were from a very well-known positive reinforcement clicker training group on Facebook. There's over 10,000 people in that group. It's moderated by some leaders in the industry. And I actually know personally one of those leaders in the industry, have met them, seen them work with horses, shook their hands, sat next to them, had coffee with them.
Mm-hmm.
So inside this group, my post about this subject was shared. And what followed was, and I'll put it lightly, nothing short of vitriol. Ad hominem attacks against my character, calling me names, even homophobic names.
Oh my God.
Discussions about how ridiculous and how unscientific of me and how incorrect and isn't he stupid and all this sorts of stuff. And then one of them said, quote, I am preparing for war, quote, direct quote. I'll never forget it because my friend said, I just want you to be prepared. They're like watching my back basically.
Mm-hmm.
And they said they're coming for you. And they were sort of making a plan to come after me. 1 hour later, I get a direct message on my business page, on emotional horsemanship on the business page. And this person who said that they were preparing for war wrote what was on the surface a very nice message. Crocodile. Very nice. But because I knew what they were saying in a private space, I could see that they were laying bait for me to take. They wanted to bait me into a corner, force me into a corner so that they could continue to eviscerate me, maybe even publicly, and get some receipts. And so I knew what they were doing. And this was a few years ago, so I was in a different place in my life and a different place in my development. And I thought I could reason with them. I thought through quality explanation and mutual discussion that I could make my position really clear and let them know that I'm not trying to challenge their position at all. I'm just sharing my point of view and my experience. I thought I could reason with them. So I actually had a reply prepared, which is stupid. I've learned not to attempt that anymore. So I attempted at that time. And it didn't go well. And it didn't matter what I said. They just kept trying to turn it and turn it and turn it into a certain direction. And eventually the conversation just devolved. And I'd asked them to be respectful. I had asked them to take the pressure off me. And what they did was go to my public page, leave an erroneous review calling me a narcissistic egomaniac and saying that they had client interactions with me which were egregious and he's horrible, and 1-star review. And at that time I had about 1,000 followers on social media, so any bad review was really bad for business. And it was a totally erroneous review, and I'd kept screenshots of all of my conversations with them. Everything I had said was totally above board, totally respectful, in my opinion. And I was happy to share that with anyone. And in this instance, I then had to counter that by making a public post to my community at the time saying, this is the interaction I've had. This person is attempting to assassinate my business for no good reason. Here are the screenshots of what I was actually saying to them and what they were actually saying to me. I'm asking everyone, if you care about my business and my work and you've had good experiences with me, please report their review as bogus and as spam and as hate speech. And then I had 25 people pile on that review and report it to Facebook, and Facebook tore that review down within the hour, and I had to block this person.
Yeah.
Last year, I get an email from this person. An email, because I have them blocked on social media. They apologized.
Really?
They said, I don't know if you remember me. I'm like, oh, I remember you.
Yeah.
How can I forget? I don't know if you remember me, but something you wrote years ago triggered me at a time when I was dealing with family problems and substance abuse issues.
Okay.
And you were an easy target.
Right.
And so I took it out on you, and that was unfair. And since then, I've continued to see what you're doing in places where I can see what you're doing, such as YouTube, etc. And I actually really respect how you've stayed true to yourself and continue to do good work, etc., etc., etc. And I simply did not reply.
Right. Wow.
This is absolutely a true story.
Story.
And if anything, I'm not exaggerating at all. If anything, I could have said more.
Yeah.
And I'm known to be hyperbolic and exaggerate for dramatic purposes. I'm really not exaggerating for dramatic purposes. It was a terrifying interaction. And my crime, again, was saying something that goes against the clicker training party line, which is speaking about emotion. And you said, it's mechanical sensation. It's been my experience that a lot of people who are drawn to the click find comfort in the fact that they don't have to connect with how they feel so much. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Some, not all.
It could be, because I think I do think that that's what I see often happening. Or that people forget that there is more to it. Then you have something in your hand, the clicker, or the whip or the rope, whatever it is. And then we get so, like, that takes over, I feel. So people tend to forget that everything comes from in here. This is where we communicate from. All the other stuff are just add-ons to that we can make things more specific or whatever. But the true communication comes from within, and we have to do the work that it requires to be balanced human beings to be able to communicate in a nice way with a horse, right? And that requires a lot of work, and it's a lifetime of work for all of us, but we have to do that work. And that's also the interesting part of it, I find. I think that you feel the same way, that often teaching others is more like being a psychologist than anything else, right? Because this is what, speaking to people about what's happening when they're trying to communicate with these animals and everything that comes up, and trying to be kind of the interpreter, So I really do think that all the important communication comes from that, and that's what we need to work on. I love not clicker training because I don't use a clicker, but I love positive reinforcement, and I do have a marker signal and everything. I just don't use a clicker because I like to put some emotion into that. And I was told then that it's supposed to not be emotional, that's why it has that sound, because then it's neutral. The horse can recognize the same sound every time, but the horses can also recognize a word, and they can recognize my feelings. So if I'm just saying thank you, or I'm saying thank you, there's a difference in that, right? And the horses like that. They love it. I think they really like that. They love that kind of communication because they can feel, okay, now we're just da 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 da. It's nice, and we're doing this, and we're on the right track, or this is the best thing ever. And
Right.
I like to be able to express that to them through my positive reinforcement also. So for me, it makes no sense that it has to be neutral. It just doesn't.
Why do people want it to be neutral?
I think maybe we tend to think that horses will not understand it.
Mm.
That it has to be the same sound every time for them to understand. It has to be, I don't know. I think that we have this picture of horses that, that they don't understand all the emotional levels, or I don't know how to explain it.
I'm going to say something controversial.
They speak at a much deeper level than we give them credit for often.
I'm going to say something maybe that infuriates people, but our personal inability to understand how we feel
Mm-hmm.
is not the horse's problem.
Right. I agree.
And we shouldn't dissociate that into training. Oh, I don't want the horse to be confused. I want it to be clear for them. And this emotional nuance and complexity is actually just really messy and like not functional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think horses understand that really well.
Yeah, I think so too.
So let me play devil's advocate, because I actually fully agree with you on everything you've just said. Totally on the same page, 100%. I have a clicker in my barn, and I have used it from time to time for certain things. It's a tool in my toolbox.
Right.
I use food reward. I used food reward this morning. I used food reward last night.
Mm-hmm.
I used food reward 2 days ago in training. I haven't actually picked up the clicker for about a year. So I actually don't know where it is. It's somewhere in my stable. My stable's getting to the point where I'm starting to lose stuff in it. Anyway, so the devil's advocate, meaning the argument I typically hear against everything you just said, is that this whole notion that there's an inner sense and an inner feeling is fundamentally unscientific, and a true lover of science and science-based training, which is espoused as extremely ethical. To be science-based training means it's rigorously backed up by data and the scientific rigor and all of this, that it's fundamentally unscientific to talk about feelings or the inner self or something, because there's no data on this, there's no proof on this, there's no whatever on this, right? So they say it's unscientific, or they say that it's incorrect, or if they concede that it might be a factor, that it's somehow coercive to use your character or your emotion as a presence in the training that the horse might respond to. Often, such a person who voices that concern, and I share that concern, is someone who has seen a horse trainer weaponize their charisma against people and against horses and say, oh, it's how you feel, and you got to be like, and they're like, why should I have to be like a cool person that's liked and like charismatic in order to, because a lot of people feel, uncharismatic. It's like that Taylor Swift song. She says, I think that everybody looks like a sexy baby and I'm the monster on the hill. A lot of people feel like the monster on the hill. I feel like the monster on the hill.
Yeah, me too.
Right? And
Yeah.
so we don't want to have to like bring out the content of our character and our charisma to it. And then we look at science, and there is some science that says that all this sort of personal woo stuff is actually a bunch of rubbish and a bunch of nonsense. I don't think it is, but that's the pushback I've typically got, is that it's just not scientific. What would you say in regards to that?
I think that it is not about being especially charismatic. I think it's about being honest.
Thank you.
As who you are. You don't have to be in a certain way to speak to a horse or a person or any other living creature. You have to be honest. That's what I'm talking about. And to me, horses are especially good at picking up on that, and responding to that if we are honest as who we are. And if you're an introverted person, I'm a very introverted person myself, don't try to be an extroverted person. Don't try to be something else. That's not the point. The point is be who you are and rest in your own being as who you are. And that is what horses like in a person, I think. That's what they feel that they can communicate with, because honesty is just what it is. I am here, I am what I am. I'm trying to say something to you. And then they can respond to that. If we try to put on masks and try to be something other than what we are, that is when the problems arise, I believe. And also, I think that most people, not everybody, but I think most people have some sense of what is kind to do to another living being. I think that we're born with that, but I think we lose it in our lives because of how everything is and how the world works and all the conditioning happening. And I think we all somehow deep down inside know what kindness is and what is kind to another being and what is not kind to another being. And so if we can stay true to that. And about the science thing, I think for me, I'm not here to speak about what's scientifically proven or not. That's not me. That's just not who I am. I am much more a person who speaks to people's hearts. I think that that's what I try to do, speak from my own heart and to the hearts of others. Because I think that I think we know deep down inside, I think if we stop and take a deep breath and look at our horse and we're honest, we will see if they are okay with what's going on or not. I really do think so. But I think there's so many layers of other voices and things and what we've learned and what that person said and that person said and what our parents did and, all of this that messes things up for us. And so we I don't know, we forget what kindness is, And why do we even have a horse? We don't have horses to win wars anymore. I think I heard you mention that somewhere as well. I mean, we're not in our part of the world anyway. We're not depending on them for survival anymore. So it's basically for pleasure, for fun. So why would we do anything other than being kind to them? It's weird. I don't know. Did that answer the question at all?
No, it answered the question beautifully. May I take that line of thought a little further? Because there's many moving parts to this.
Yeah.
The word positive in positive reinforcement is so easy for people uninitiated into the science to mean, oh, that
Good.
means it's better reinforcement. That means it's morally, ethically superior reinforcement. That means it's enjoyable reinforcement. That means it's lovely, it's kind reinforcement because of our cultural associations to the word positive across language spectrums, by the way, because the word positive is understood in Polish, in German, in French, in Spanish. You say positive, positive, or whatever, someone's going to understand the Latin root of that. So it's an extremely alluring phrase, positive reinforcement. And a lot of people will go straight to it the minute they're looking for something kinder. And there was a period in my life, Louise, where I specialized in helping people who had done that, went there and went, oh, it isn't actually all of the answer. And how come my horse is responding sometimes as if I'm treating them unkindly?
Right.
And they didn't understand because their teachers in positive reinforcement weren't teaching that there are side effects, that the root of the science had a certain etymology about it. They weren't teaching this stuff. They were just saying, yeah, it's like better reinforcement. So it's better training and it's morally superior and it's kind by default always. And that's just not the case. And this is the part where I want to hold very dearly and closely and lovingly and respectfully anyone listening who uses food reward in training, because I also use food reward in training. And I want them to know that I'm not a wolf in sheep's clothing. I'm not using food reward so that I can destroy it from within. I'm not trying to destroy the food reward training community. Who the hell am I to try and do that? I can't change that. And I don't want to. I think it's a fabulous tool in training and we need to learn how to use it, but it's not the only tool in training. I want to hold you very closely and hear me out when I say this. Food-based training, positive reinforcement, R+, comes from a piece of science called operant conditioning. You and I know that. Operant conditioning is a phrase that was discovered, coined, titled by one of the original researchers into the ideas around positive reinforcement and operant conditioning in the early 20th century. Over 80 years ago. So science is over 80 years old, very old. And his name was B.F. Skinner, Burhus Frederick Skinner. And he had a bunch of associates and a bunch of researchers and a bunch of colleagues in the industry, but he's really the figurehead, right? Skinner was a behaviorist, meaning the focus was on behavior. Behavior is actionable actions, mechanical actions that you can observe, measure, and describe. So he was a behaviorist, but he wasn't just a behaviorist, Louise. Do you know what he called himself?
No.
Frederick Skinner called himself a radical behaviorist. That's what he called himself. He called what his research was radical behaviorism, meaning pure behaviorism. He had many opinions through his life. But early on in his career, when he was researching operant conditioning, he is on the record for saying that he believed free will was a myth. He believed emotion was a myth. Later on in his career and before his death, he went back on those ideas and said, no, actually, I concede that there is data for emotion. Emotion is a factor. But when he was putting together the research around operant conditioning, as a radical behaviorist, he's on the record for saying emotion doesn't exist. Free will is not existing. All behavior is driven by externally mediated factors only. Is something in the environment aversive or worrisome or something you don't like? Or is something in the environment something you like? Is something punishing you? Or is something adding to you or taking away from you. So it's always about externally mediated factors. So you've got negative reinforcement, positive reinforcement, negative punishment, positive punishment. These are the 4 quadrants of operant conditioning. And anyone using positive reinforcement or food-based training needs to understand these quadrants, because this is the scientific route that you're using. And then there's also something called reinforcement schedules, which I have a whole online course on, which is actually part of operant conditioning. That's not really taught, in my opinion, in a mainstream food-based training approach, which gives credence for different types of reward. So you can reward behavior, and you can reward behaviors performed in a variable way or in a fixed way. So you ask for one behavior reward. That's a fixed ratio. Or you can ask for one behavior reward, 13 behaviors reward, 3 behaviors reward, 6 behaviors reward. That's variable ratio. But then you also have intervals where you reward for time spent, regardless what is done. You don't mark the action, you reward time spent. 1 minute goes past, reward. Doesn't matter if they're in the middle of doing something. Another minute goes past, reward. Or 1 minute, reward. 12 minutes, reward. 6 minutes, reward. 3 minutes, reward. So you got variable interval, you got fixed interval. These are schedules that you can use to deliver a positive reinforcement to a being. I love using intervals. They're my favorite.
Yeah.
But there's also a time and a place for using behavior ratio. And if you look at the science, they've graphed very specifically what will be guaranteed to you as the behaviorist if you use a different schedule. If you use a variable ratio, you will get a rapid escalation of behaviors over time. So in a short period of time, the horse will rapidly escalate how many behaviors they give you. This is very helpful if you've got a horse in drastic breakdown and you need to get them from A to B as quickly as possible, such as getting a horse vaccinated or sedated because they've torn their leg open and they're aversive to needles. You need to use variable ratio to extremely quickly, and I will say coercively, powerfully, get the horse into where you need them to be so you can take care of them. That's a great place to use it. But another place to use fixed ratio is a horse that goes over threshold too quickly if they rapidly escalate. They need to be able to predict how many behaviors they're doing before they get rewarded, and they don't want it to vary. But if you think of trail riding, a trail riding horse can be rewarded at any time, and it doesn't interrupt them. They just keep on flowing past. There's also a post-reinforcement pause where you'll see a dip and a lull in all neurological activity related to the behavior. And there's very specific patterns. And I teach all of this really comprehensively on that online course, right? But that's not taught in clicker training, in my opinion, in a comprehensive way. It's just not taught. They teach basically a fixed ratio. And some clicker trainers even say that it's unscientific and unethical to use variable or unpredictable food reward. But they don't know that the very science that they're using spoke about unpredictable reward. So when I looked into the root of this, I thought, why would I want to use radical behaviorism from a guy who believed emotion was a myth? And since, I mean, he went back on his own word, but the damage was done. Yeah. And by the way, when he was doing his initial research, he did it on animals. He did scientific tests on animals, but not on complex animals. A lot of his tests were done rats, less complex. A lot of his original studies were done on sea mollusks, little tentacles poking out of a shell. He put food into the water and he put food into the water and the tentacle reached towards the food. He called that a petitive behavior, a petitive response. The tentacle wanted the thing, so it leant into the thing. And later in my training, I talk about a basic appetitive response where a horse will lean into something that they're enjoying. And then he put an electrical current, like an electric shock in the water, and the tentacle leant away from the electrical shock. And he called that an aversive response. And that whole notion of an aversive response has been adopted by many people using positive reinforcement as a catch-all weapon against any pressure in training whatsoever, that all pressure is aversive. And it's not been my experience, because I've seen horses lean into pressure as an appetitive,
Yeah.
as something they enjoy.
Yeah. Yes. And also, pressure is many things, right?
Yes.
We're not talking about beating a horse up pressure, right?
Hello. Yes. Right.
We're not
Exactly.
talking about, as you talked about recently, waving flags or
Getting after them.
ropes and things in their face. That's not the kind of pressure we're talking about. We can use pressure very, very gently and lightly. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. And I don't see my horses or any horses I train not understanding that and being completely fine with it. Yeah.
What's been your experience with the term aversive?
What's been my experience with it?
Do you care about that term? Does it bother
Not
you?
really.
No.
Not really.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
No,
you're like, I don't care, right?
No,
you just train your horses.
Because I feel it's just a word that you stick on something, and then it sounds bad.
Bad.
You know?
Right.
But
That's aversive.
But it doesn't have to. Yeah, right. And I think again, like I said before, if we're honest and if we're balanced in ourselves, which is difficult, but if we are, at least part of the time, I think communicating to a horse is like communicating to any other living creature, really. You know, we can set boundaries. That is also something that I find is there's a lot of taboo about we cannot set boundaries to horses. Why not? I mean, why not? I can set a boundary to a horse and we're all fine. It's just saying, no, this is not nice to me. Please don't do that. And that's it. I don't say, you're a naughty, nasty, horrible horse. I hate you. Or, my horse set me up for failure today. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, please don't do that. It's not nice. And then I will be also respectful to you and try to avoid doing things that you don't find nice, And this is just, to me, normal communication between two living individuals. And sometimes I think that we also maybe make it more complicated than it needs to be. Even though I know that we have to, because everybody has to understand and, we have to be able to explain. But somehow, sometimes I just feel that, but it's not that, why do we have to make it so complicated?
I think there's a big difference between complication and nuance.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's a big difference there. I'm a lover of nuance, and nuance has a very specific, in my mind, a very specific protocol that needs to be followed to be engaged with correctly. Complication is, for me, essentially chaos. And I have a well-known allergy to chaos. I can even be a bit of a killjoy and not very fun to be around sometimes because I dislike chaos so much. Chaotic energy, chaotic communication styles, chaotic situations just really are hugely aversive to me. Wink. But that's my horrible sense of humor. But I think nuance for me is about making a decision first, getting off the fence, make a decision, yes or no, left or right, red or blue, this or that. Make a decision first so that you're clear about the direction. Once you're clear about direction, then look at the minutiae and look at the nuance, look at the little details, because that's super fun. And that, well, for me, that's fun.
Yes, it is important. It's very important. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So this is my other little issue around positive reinforcement. I'd like to talk about this with you. I've got several of them, but I specifically want to talk about this one. I believe many people within the positive reinforcement community who have made a decision to train with this tool of food reward almost exclusively, and maybe they'll use pressure, but they'll rebrand it as tactile cues.
Yeah.
right? Because a lot of the people they work for and work with can't bring themselves to use the word pressure because their understanding of pressure is relegated only to bad pressure. They don't have models of so they've relanguaged it, and I respect that. If you need to relanguage something so that you can engage with it, sure, and not a problem for me. But I think because we were talking about the emotional bias around the word positive, I think a lot of the people who are drawn to positive reinforcement are drawn to it as advocates and warriors for horses' well-being and want to own that revolution. They want to be the tool, the solution to the problems we see in the horse world. That this is the solution. And I think it's a big, big chunk of the solution, like an enormous chunk.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's the end of the solution. And I don't think it's a panacea, cure all, or a silver bullet that will bring down the abuse complex we see in horse training. It certainly won't. I also don't stand with anyone who calls food reward bribery. I won't stand with you. That is dogma. That is unfair. It's not bribery. I won't stand in the same room with anyone who's critical. Yeah. Who say, oh, food reward creates pushy horses only. I won't stand in that same room. Food reward creates horses who are greedy and mobbing and who aren't connected. I won't stand in that room. I don't agree. That is absolutely fundamentally incorrect. But at the same time, I won't stand in a room with anyone who believes that the ethical revolution starts and stops with positive reinforcement. I won't stand in the room with you.
No.
And I will also go to the mat for you and defend your right to use food reward at the same time. And that's why I'm confusing to people, because it's like two things are true at the same time. They want me to get off the fence, and I have gotten off the fence. And the fence I'm getting off is food reward good or bad? Oh, it's fundamentally good.
Yeah.
Fundamentally good. The nuance that follows is that it depends.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, because there's more to it than that.
There's more to it.
Yeah. I use food rewards every single day with my horses. I use it a lot.
Yes, Oki told me that you do.
I'm sure he did.
Oki told me that you do. The first time
we got a lot of carrots.
He knows his way around a carrot, and you should have seen him last summer when he met a wondrous miracle called watermelon.
Oh,
his eyes popped out of his head like someone squeezing a rabbit too hard. He went, "What the hell is that?" And he ran me down in the pasture to get more watermelon. It was like crack cocaine for him. He loved it. But the first time I asked Oki to walk from his meal position back into the track, and I didn't have a carrot.
He said, "Nope."
He planted his feet and he said, "Nope, what's that shit?"
Right.
Pay me.
Right. That does not surprise me.
And if I pay him, he'll go. But to come forwards off the rapport of a tactile cue or a touch through the halter is confusing to him, and also his teething. So the contact of the halter on his lower jaw will touch discomfort. And I think I didn't catch on to that soon enough. And I think there was there definitely was a handful of times they would have asked for something off the halter and it would have hurt his jaw, and that would have counter-conditioned him to not like the halter. So I'm like, oh shit, okay, now I've got to fix that. And I am, we're working on it. But we've had a couple of disagreements about walking 5 meters back into the track. 5 meters, but that tracks because we needed to get him loaded, and I permitted you, green lighted you to use food reward. I'm like, do what you have to do.
Yeah, I was going to say, because it's really, I think if it had not been like a specific, I had to teach him to walk into that trailer, right?
Hello.
And we had some months to do that. I had plenty of time, but still, if he hadn't had to travel and it had just been any other 2-year-old horse, you
would have taken even longer.
Yes, and I would not have focused on the trailer every single time I was there, because that's too much of one thing, like too much the same thing every time,
Yeah.
So, and when I started with him, he wouldn't walk. That was the first issue.
He wasn't halter trained. He was wonderful at liberty.
He would not walk. He would just stand there, block his feet and look at me and start biting the rope.
Yes, familiar. Mm.
So that was the first thing, to
Halter
get
training.
him. Yeah. So, and because I didn't have, endless amounts of time to just, teach him normal leading and blah, 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 all this stuff. Of course, I did that with him, but I had to get him into that trailer,
Yeah.
and spend most of the time doing that. So
I would have loved to have given you more time if you had circled back to me and said, Lockie, honestly, at this age, with this horse and the way his brain works, he's just not ready to leave home. He needs maybe another 6 months, another year. I would have loved to have said, okay, Louise, I agree with you. But unfortunately, that wasn't up to us because Cara, his breeder, was at her wit's end trying to keep this border collie alive and healthy. And she was very much moving into another space in her life and her family. So I wanted to be completely respectful for the fact that she had held on to him for 2 years on my request and that he needed to move on. So it was, the best case scenario. And so food reward is a powerful tool for powerful problems. And so we had a powerful problem and you used a powerful tool to resolve it. But on the back end of that, there is a back end. There's a shadow to that light, right? And so the shadow to that is he has a lot of questions around doing things in a non-transactional for food manner. He's got a lot of questions about that. Why should I do it without there being a transaction? It's like giving a 2-year-old a salary for brushing their teeth.
Yeah. That's a good one.
And ask a toddler to have a salary for brushing their teeth. They don't have the emotional cognitive maturity to understand salary and understand a reward that's consistent and over time. And that's why you don't give 2-year-old salaries, because they would become serial killers.
Yeah.
Right? I'm being facetious, but it's true. There's a reason why children don't work for money. Exactly. And why it's illegal worldwide and seen as unethical for children to work for money. But we had a powerful problem, so we're asking an infant nervous system to be paid for a certain task. And now I'm in a process of actually visiting that subject. Again, I'm not rehabilitating, but changing the paradigm there with him, because I have no issue with the way you developed him. None. Zero concerns.
I mean, I would rather give him too many food rewards than have to be harsh with him, right?
And fight.
And that's kind of what it was, when he was just planting his feet. And
there was one handling session I did where he planted his feet, but then he planted his feet and he pulled back. And then he pulled back and he went up in the air.
Oh, really?
And I was asking for forward off a looped connection to the lead line. So the lead line wasn't straight between his head and my hand. It was looped. It was off a soft feel. And he went the other direction, which is what young horses will do. Mm-hmm. And he went back, pulled back, threw the head up, reared. And I took a hip lock with the lead rope and bent my knees on a diagonal like a surfboard, and I held. Yeah. And he found the end of that lead rope and came down and went, well, that was a shit idea. And I went, yes, it was a shit idea. Mm-hmm. So sorry we had to go there, but that was a boundary. Now, a lot of people from positive reinforcement will say, that's unethical.
Yeah.
That's aversive.
And also remember, he was the one that pulled and you held on.
Correct. But devil's advocate, the people from a lot of people in the positive reinforcement community will say, you have no right to expect the horse to contribute socially, emotionally. You took them out of the wild. It is incumbent upon us to be the sole social emotional contributors. We should not be expecting the horse to contribute socially and emotionally to a connection. So you're saying, he was the one who chose to pull back. It's his fault. A lot of people in positive reinforcement find it really hard to stand in the same room with the logic of, well, the horse did it to themselves. They say, no, that's unacceptable to us. And I understand that point of view very much. And I'm not saying I enjoyed that situation. I'm deeply conflicted. I think it's good for horses to discover that there are consequences to their choices. I think that's good for them. And if that makes me unethical, I will wear that. But what I know is this horse went, that was a shit idea. And then he looked at me and he said, now what?
Yeah. And then he learned something.
Well, it took a while. We were there for about 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you see this soft drape on the rope and my voice beckoning you and my body saying, come. I'm asking you to walk the 5 meters from where you eat your dinner back into the pasture where you live. Yeah. And there was nothing uncomfortable because I had soft step mats on the floor. So he couldn't even have said, oh, my feet hurt or whatever the storyline was. And I was making sure I was staying off the jaw. And he went, yeah, I understand. But actually, that question's really annoying and boring. What I'd prefer to do is go over there and annoy Sereno as he's eating his dinner because he's got more food. He's got extra food. I'm going to go help him eat it.
Yeah.
And I went, okay. I gave him the lead rope over his back and he went, I'm going to go work out that idea. And he got a great idea. I'm going over to Sereno to help him finish his meal. He needs my help to help him finish dinner. Sereno pinned his ears and said, bugger off, little squid. Yep. Mine. Bugger off, little squid. And Oki went, I think you meant, let me share with you. And he came back in again. And he said, leave me alone. And Sereno looked at me and said, can you deal with it? And Oki went, oh, I will yield to you. Oh, why are you in a bad mood? Here, there's food. Let me help you eat. Like he just wasn't getting the idea of someone being angry at him because no one ever had.
Right.
And Sereno looked at me and sighed and said, can you, please, I'm trying to eat. Because he's so regimented. And I halted him and I put him back in the same question. Can you lead with me? And he went, that is such a boring thing to be doing right now. Don't you think it's better that you give me carrots? Don't you think that it's better that I'm eating everyone else's food? What a shit idea. I think your idea is a shit. I went, that's okay, but I just need you to walk over here, please, 5 meters. And he went, and he resigned himself to it. And he said, okay. And he walked perfectly lightly back into the field. This is the conversation I'm having with him. You know what I'm talking about because you know this horse, right?
I've had these conversations with him also. I did not only feed him treats. I also had these conversations with him. And he can be very, very stubborn.
Extremely stubborn. Extremely stubborn. And everything was going great. And then suddenly the problem resurfaced again. And I'm like, why is he just... And I'm like, okay, I'll just leave him until everyone's finished their food and there's no food left on the yard. And then I will use Sani to walk with him and I'll lead both of them together. And Sani's like, come on. And if necessary, Sani puts his shoulder into the lead rope and Sani's like, come on, like just brings him. And he follows Sani because he loves Sani. And Sani's perfect on the lead rope. And I was like, why is this come back? Why has this come back? I thought we had talked about this. And then one day my worker, Brie, who I adore, I saw her stashing carrots in her pocket as she does her job. And I saw her, to make life easier, consistently give him a carrot to go back into the field to make life easier for her. And I went, Brie, I caught her in the act. I said, Brie, no more food rewards outside of a training environment right now because he needs structure around them now. Yeah. We're not to use it to hurry things along or make life easier. I know it looks like he enjoys it more when you do it that way, but we're creating a negative side effect that's not good for his well-being. And so we just have to take the foods away for a while. And since we have, it's a lot better. And, so kind of gone cold turkey, but now I'm bringing in the food reward to play. Mm-hmm. And I throw courier boxes into the field and they go into the field perfectly square. The next morning, they're destroyed. They're annihilated. He's completely killed the boxes. And we're using food reward to start to have other conversations, kind of move the needle. Mm-hmm. But when you were talking with him about these things and he was really stubborn, how did that conversation go with you? Let's take a break. So, I have some really exciting news for everyone whilst we're on our break. The news is, after 2 years and a lot of work and a lot of effort, Emotional Horsemanship has a new home online, a brand new website. This website offers you guys a much easier pathway through the website to make bookings, to read, to get information, and to explore what we have to offer you. And on this website, we have a Emotional Horsemanship school. This school has many different ways that you can use it. 3 different ways you can use it. There is a super affordable subscription. which you can start anytime, stop anytime, and there's over 200 videos to explore, plus group coaching calls that you can join. You can also go to the school to review and watch any of the online courses that I have created. In the past, we hosted these on Udemy, which is a third-party platform, and now we have transferred them to our own digital home forever. And if you are an existing student on Udemy, we are transferring you for free to the Emotional Horsemanship School, where you can see the courses on a far superior and much easier to use platform. Also, the most exciting part of my year is about to begin. It is homecoming season. Homecoming is a 3-month group coaching program that I run every September through December. It is a live cohort, live delivery of a one-time only focus subject matter. This year, Homecoming is all about the nuance of non-escalating pressure. Apparently, this year, this professional year of 2025 has become the platform for me of sticks and food reward and the question of whips and pressure and how much pressure to use and what is ethical and what is not. All of these questions are in the air, and it's been the most popular question that I've had this year. And so we're going to answer it, but we're not just going to sit down and answer it at a desk. I'm going to answer it practically, with actual demonstrations and live examples from my student community. This group coaching program is for anyone who rides horses, cares for horses, or trains horses on the ground, who is maybe tired of being told that you're too soft with that horse, or tired of the confusion of how much pressure to use now, and what is ethical, and what is escalating pressure, what is non-escalating pressure. All of these confusions, we need to come forward and answer them. And I'm going to endeavor to answer them. And I'm going to answer them with deep dives into nerdy science, detailed explorations through practical demonstrations, live Q&As, live webinars, and this year the live meetings are going to be delivered across 6 time zones. So if you're in Australia and New Zealand, North or South America, or Europe, there are time zones that will be comfortable for you. We are now open for intakes for Homecoming 3.0, the nuance of non-escalating pressure, and I would love to invite you there. We have 3-month payment plans available. You can also make a one-time payment, and I have limited availability to offer financial aid to those in assistance. If you'd like to join us, please click the link in the description of this podcast, or go to emotionalhorsemanship.com and navigate to the Homecoming 3.0 page. It's right at the top if you're listening to this podcast in real time. If you're listening to this podcast in the future, you'll be able to find Homecoming there as a self-study option for the future. Now, thanks for listening. Thanks for letting me promote the reason why I'm able to create this podcast at all. And let's return to our conversation with Louise Bach-Holler as we change the subject slowly from food rewards and enter in the discussion around bits and whips. When you were talking with him about these things and he was really stubborn, how did that conversation go with you?
Well, it depended a little bit on what we were doing, but it was actually this thing about walking forward.
Right.
That was it. And I mean, for me to have to load him into a trailer, he kind of needs to understand.
Go forward.
Go forward. And so, so I would reward him for moving forward. That was in the early beginning, because
Right.
he was just standing there,
Going
long,
up. Yeah.
legs. And I, try a little bit of a pull on the rope, a little bit of pressure. Come on, and inviting him. And he would maybe take one step and then stop again. So I taught him that if he came to me, he was rewarded. And so then I could get him to move with me. And then I would walk more and more and more. And then I actually didn't really reward him for that anymore. I quite quickly could phase that out. But then we came to a point where it just started again. And that's when I used my whip, I have to say. but I didn't hurt him with it.
Okay, let's talk
But
about
I
whips.
was,
We're going to shift gears
I was
because we
holding
agreed.
it, like a little, like wiggling it.
Mm-hmm.
But there was some energy behind, and that actually worked for him also. Then he would, okay, and then he'd move forward, and then we kind of got through it. And with the trailer, he was quite okay with that because he got the foot rewards every time he walked up. He put a foot on the ramp, he got a reward. Another foot on the ramp, he got a reward. And when he got into the trailer, we had a bucket of food for him, right? So he had good associations with that.
Well, he had food associations with that.
He had food associations, yeah.
And there's, of course, an effect to food, but there's an addictive effect to food also with hormones and the neuroendocrine profile that food will elicit. Okay, I want to talk about sticks with you a little bit.
Okay.
Do you have time and energy to talk a bit about sticks?
Yeah.
When you asked me, I would like to introduce the stick or the whip. Is that okay for you? What did I say?
Yes.
Everyone just remember that before I say what I'm about to say next. Before you take me too seriously on what I'm about to say next, when Louise Bach-Holler asked me, might I introduce the stick to your young horse? I said, yes, of course. I trust you. Right? Because I know you're not introducing it as an implement of harm. And I know that this horse has never been harmed with them before.
Right.
So it has no association with him except a weird thing you're holding in your hand. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, if you show him an arm extender, I don't have a whip in my farm, but I do have a rainbow feather duster that I use as an arm extender. It doesn't work very well because if I shake it behind them.
What is that?
A rainbow feather duster, it's to take dust away, like a cleaning.
Okay.
Yeah, it's with an extendable hand, and
right.
I'll use it as a target every now and then. I haven't used it for a target for a long time, but if I need to move horses out of a space with energy from behind, I'll use my feather duster, and most of the time they just turn and touch it with their nose rather than moving away from it. They're like, "What's that? That's funny," But I knew you wouldn't use it as an instrument of fear. And having said all of that, the whip is something I have dropped. The stick is something I've dropped. I've decided at this moment in time to take a very public stance on that. I put out a YouTube video about why I don't train with sticks anymore. I've been on the podcast with friends talking about my experience with sticks and why I don't use them anymore and why I've decided not to use them. But I'd like to just give some space for you to talk about your experience with sticks, with whips, arm extenders, etc. Yeah, go ahead.
So I think one of the things, because I commented on your video when you put that out, and we had a little discussion about it.
Right.
I believe. And I was thinking about it after. I was thinking, I think I haven't really spent much time in the natural horsemanship world. That was never really part of my, the journey I've been on with horses and am on with horses. I've come from I think I've come from another kind of environment, maybe. So I think I've seen things maybe a little bit differently, used a little bit differently. But I think the stick and the whip is one of those things that I mentioned before that can very easily take over. Like the clicker, also in my opinion, it seems that when we have something in our hand, it very easily takes over. We become so focused on communicating with this thing that we forget all the other things that we talked about before. At the same time, I use a stick sometimes. I don't use it always. I do lots of training without one, but I do use it sometimes. And I think that, if I don't feel that my horse has any problems with it, and if I just use it as a touch the shoulder or, something, I don't really see why not, I do understand what you're saying, and I think that it's important, and I think it's a very important discussion to have because it is being used. Yeah. sometimes very abusively, sometimes mildly abusively. It is definitely an important topic to talk about. But at the same time, I think,
why not?
yeah, why not? Why not use it if it can be used in a way that's not abusive to the horse or doesn't bring up bad
Right.
memories? Well, we can never know for sure. Of course, we can never know that for sure, but we can
Yes.
look at the horse and kind of see what they're telling.
Even science doesn't know for sure. That's what science
No.
is. Science says this is what we know for sure right now, according to what we have available to us. But tomorrow
Right.
that might change. That's what science essentially is. But you just said something that was a learning for me and that I'd like to add. I've said in the past that a stick has the potential to physically overpower a horse.
Mm-hmm.
But you just alluded to the fact that it can physically overpower us as well. We become the chimpanzee with the stick poking in the termite nest. I'm no longer a chimpanzee. I'm chimpanzee stick. I'm now no longer animal. I am biology, like a bio animal. I am like a bio machine. I'm like half person, half machine now. Like the stick is the first machine. It's the first tool. There is something deeply primal in our brain, in our ape brain, that says stick equals good. I am now able to leverage the world to my advantage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And I've got a particular interest, a niche, nerdy fixation and fascination in challenging myself to do what is very, very hard for me to do. And that is train horses without an advantage on my side, to give the advantage to them.
Yeah.
Everywhere. And I because it's a niche fixation and fascination for me, I have to be extremely rigorous in my analysis of training and all and sundry apparatus and tools and techniques associated with training to hunt for, locate, and edit out a lever, an advantage, a moment of overpowering. I have to take all of them out, even if on a scale of 1 to 100, it's only a 1 or it's only a 0.5. I'm trying to take it out. And I ruin it every day. I'm bad at it every day, but I'm trying, and I'm trying not only myself, but with my team and my clients. We're exploring this together. At this moment, thousands of people on my courses and in their own way through my teaching are influencing, exploring this also. And so I dropped the stick. I haven't dropped a food reward, but a food reward is also a lever and an advantage. And so I'm very cautious about when I use it, but it is an advantage I'm willing to play with. It's an advantage I've discerned is appropriate sometimes. My issue with sticks, if you meet any horse in the world, just close your eyes like fish in a barrel, reach into the invisible bag and pull out any horse in the world. And you stand in front of that horse, whether they're trained or not, and you pick up a stick and you just point that stick as an arm extender to their hindquarters. They don't know you well enough to know your intentions. And imagine you're emotionally neutral. Imagine you're not a deeply hostile person. Imagine you're not a closeted abuser. Imagine in your core, to your bone, you're kind. And you mean no harm. And a horse you don't know, and you pick up that stick, and without touching or hurting them, you simply point to the hindquarters, and that causes the horse to go forward now.
Right.
Now.
Yeah. That means they have
That means the horse has an association of that implement at least touching them, if not just touching, possibly stinging. If we look at the construction of a stick, it's a fiberglass core wrapped in nylon braid, and many of them have a lash or a little paddle on the end. The fiberglass is elastic and movable and pliant, so that when it's moved, the end of it has a very mild whipping sensation. So it's about leveraging speed to be faster than your hand is moving, right? That's what a whip is. You move your hand in one speed, but the end of the whip moves at the speed of light because of the lever action of the physics of it. Whips are a milder version of like a whip crack, right? A stick is a milder version of that, where you're still creating a leverage action on the end of the fiberglass tip, where the tip will always be moving faster than your hand is moving, unless you're moving your hand so slowly that there's no wobble to the stick whatsoever. Not only that, but the fiberglass is thin and pointed, and horses are thinner skinned than us. Their epidermis is thinner than us. And there's often a lash on the end, which again exacerbates this whip scenario. It's very, very easy to sting a horse accidentally with a stick. Very, very easy. So my question to people who use sticks without hurting them, if you are committed to not hurting the horse with a stick, why not choose a tool that does not have this leverage action on the end of it, that in no scenario at all could it sting the horse? Now, when I was doing some academic dressage myself, and my very good friend Sietske brought me a stick, she was horrified the second week, not horrified, but she was like looking at me sideways the second week when she showed up, when I had put a cut up foam pool noodle on the end of the stick to make sure it never stung my horse, even by accident. Because the very construction of it is designed to lever and smack and sting. And the sting doesn't have to be like,
Why
oh my
was
God,
she
I'm
horrified
dying.
about that?
Well, because it didn't look elegant, you see.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah.
And that world, no disrespect, but the world of academic dressage, I mean, they've got moustaches and costumes on, and they're all about the elegance and the way it looks. It's the optics.
Yeah.
Walk into a dressage yard with a stick with a foam like thing on the end, and you'd be laughed at.
But I do think that I agree with you. I think, and that's what I wrote to you also. Can we not invent one that's really soft, but still has like because I do think that sometimes it is nice to have an arm extension. Yeah. And be able to point at a hip or a shoulder and,
I agree.
I agree with you. Invent one that is like really soft and that cannot like.
We've got them. They actually.
But that is still kind of, because pool noodles are kind of
floppy
and annoying. Yeah.
I love pool noodles, but the positive reinforcement community has given us targets, like extendable targets with balls on the end.
Right.
That actually came out of the training of marine mammals, seals, cetaceans, whales, dolphins. So the whole extendable target concept came out of SeaWorld, and then the training of dogs, and now it's trickled down into horses, and it's also in like the care of captive wild animals in zoos. They use targets as well. So, that would be something I'd be interested in looking into. I would look into that, because there's no way it could become pliant enough to have a leverage action on the end of it. And if you touch with the end of it, it doesn't sting. It is actually just a touch. There is no sting or even the threat of a sting present. But at the same time, Louise, I've developed the ability over time to point at a body part of my horse from a distance, and without extending my arm or making it bigger, the horse knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And people say, well, what about from the saddle? How do you access the hindquarters from the saddle? Well, if you have an awareness of where the feet are and what the spine is doing, you can actually use your leg aids and condition that the hindquarters will be connected to your leg aids. Absolutely. So you can do that without a stick also. They say, well, what about the shoulder? Same deal. You can connect the shoulder to your hand. You can connect the shoulder to your thigh. And if you're aware of where the spine is, where the body parts are, and the timing, you can time your aids so that you're connecting to specific body parts of the horse. So I kind of replace sticks with timing and body awareness. That doesn't make me better, because at the same time, this is the bad part of that. When I don't use a stick, my horse has to put in extra mental effort to understand me.
Yeah.
And that is a mental load on the horse.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Harder. If I use a stick and I just extend and touch it, the horse doesn't have to think so hard about what I mean. They know what I mean faster.
Yeah.
And if you're dealing with a horse with a cognitive threshold issue, meaning they get overwhelmed easily and they're not afraid of the stick. I mean, how many horses are overwhelmed easy but aren't afraid of sticks? 2, 2.5? I don't know. But if they are overwhelmed easily and not afraid of you or afraid of a stick or afraid of your intention, and you have trust and you have all of that, you can mentally economize the horse by using a stick, and that can kind of alleviate mental pressure, and that can be really good for some horses.
Mm-hmm.
Horses that are going through.
Would you then use it for such a horse if you were to train such a horse?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm. When my Sani had cancer a year ago, and he was convalescing from, having his salivary glands extracted.
Is he fully over that? Like completely?
We believe so. But touch wood, he gets large doses of colostrum to keep it at bay, but it's apparently not in his system. It didn't metastasize, and we got the lump early, and then we took out the salivary gland below it, and it appears that we're okay. But when he was recovering from that, because we noticed a dip in his energy,
mm-hmm.
I saw that there was something. When he was recovering from his cancer, and energy was unavailable to him sometimes, and I still wanted to train and talk with him. And he was like, I love you, but I just don't have the mental capacity right now. Adding the stick mentally economized what I was saying, literally like crutches. Mm-hmm. I was able to mentally hold him up.
Mm-hmm.
And he was able to go further in what he could do. And when he could go further in what he could do faster with less mental effort, in that instance, he felt successful. But when I went too far with that, it acted like a dopamine blindfold, where it reduced his awareness of certain things in the environment and had him kind of move through things faster than he needed to for his and my safety. And then we had very specific situations which caused me to be like, okay, I can drop the stick now. And I did. I
think this thing about moving faster, I think that's one of the biggest reasons that
it's the reason.
Use the stick
faster.
Right? We cannot wait for the horse to take a moment. I catch myself in this all the time, reminding myself, give them time.
Right.
Because I wanna do something. Come on.
Yeah.
Have this, all of us, we want to
make it happen.
We want to make things happen. We want to move forward. We want to get the results. We want to, achieve what it is that we want to achieve. And we don't really want to wait for the horses to
understand.
Give them the time. Sometimes they just need 20 seconds to process something, to figure out what we're saying, and then they'll respond to it.
Sometimes they need 2 minutes. Sometimes they need 2 weeks to develop a relationship to forward movement based on a social cue. To develop a relationship to forward motion based on a social cue from a human is a very specific soft skill a horse has to develop. There's the hard physical skill of actually walking, and then there's the soft skill, which is the mental and emotional skill that horses need before they can do physical things. I really focus on those soft skills so that the physical stuff can just be there. You just press buttons to get physical stuff if the horse has the soft skills to set it up. But to move forward off a social cue is a very specific situation that a horse has to learn, and many of them don't have it naturally. I've met horses at clinics and online who, I swear to God, if they spoke English or Danish, they would say to me, why are the monkeys obsessed with going forwards?
Mm-hmm.
What's this obsession with forwards at all costs?
Mm-hmm.
What about sidewards? What about staying still? What about backwards? What about left and right? Why always forward? But going forwards is one thing that makes horse people feel really successful quickly.
Yeah. And many horses will just stand there and look at you. Right.
And that's so frustrating because they make you consider your obsession with forward. They're like, I need you to think about this. And what's that coming from? What's this obsession with forward without listening?
That's the difficult part, for sure. But I think also something else that I wanted to say to you about that, and I think also why I reacted to it when I commented on
you didn't react. You responded really well, and I really liked your questions.
But I think that maybe for some people, if you've spent many years, educating yourself and trying to do better, trying to come to a place where you're helping horses and people and teaching, and you've been through a long journey to get there, and then someone says maybe you should consider the use of sticks, and maybe deep down inside, that there might be some truth to that, then it can be hard. I think maybe with some of the reactions that you get to it, that it can be difficult if you feel you're out there doing your best and you're trying to make a difference, trying to do good, but you are using that stick but you're using it in a kind way, if we can say that, that then it can be, I think for some people, it can be hard to it feels like an extra thing. Oh, now I also have to think about this, or maybe I'm not ready to go there yet, or I don't know. Do you understand what I mean?
I understand perfectly what you mean. That's a really important nuance, and I agree with you, and I've met that. I've lost friendships, I've lost colleagues, I've lost associates over that exact point.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, I'm actually out here doing my best too, Lockie. I just happen to have a stick in my hand trying my best. Why does that make me a bad person? I work so hard. I'm so tired. I'm many decades into this career. Why are you now expecting me to drop this little thing that I know I use well?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I think a lot of people will feel that way. Yeah.
Absolutely they will. And I lose money. People cancel clinics over this opinion. People write me hostile messages because of it.
Oh, well, that's
hostile messages telling me that they've been in rooms where people are criticizing me and they will no longer defend me when they're in those rooms. I can name names, Louise. It's wild.
Well,
but
you don't have to.
I stand resolute in my feelings and my awareness and my concerns that sticks have the potential to physically overpower the horse. If someone has a horse like Oki, raise it from birth, the horse has never experienced a sting. And they're using a stick that has the potential to sting, but it never has, ever, not even by accident. Not even by accident, because horses learn patterns after one repetition. Once. That's all it takes is once. I only had to touch Oki's sore jaw with the knot of the halter once for him to go, and I'm out. Once. And now I'm working with an issue that I have to overcome, and it's going to take years to properly overcome that. Now, if they're using a horse, working with a horse that has never been stung and they will never sting, and they pick up that stick and the horse doesn't immediately go forward, doesn't immediately go forward every time without thinking and give them more now, but the horse instead becomes aware of the stick. The horse instead thinks about the placement of the stick. The horse thinks about the placement of the stick and how that changes their body in sculpting movement. That I am here for, 1,000%. But if you pick up a stick and that horse now goes forward faster, easier for you, I want you to know that that is because somewhere in that horse's history, they were hurt by it. And whether you have good intentions or not, whether you're experienced or not, whether you are tired or not, you are not entitled. We are not entitled to use fear or pain, even the memory or the potential of fear and pain to create responsivity in our horses anymore. Maybe in the past we were if we're getting a horse to war. Maybe in the past we were if it was necessary for our well-being. Everyone, look to your left and to your right. This is a pleasure now. This is a pleasure now. And if it's a pleasure now, the standards have changed.
But then, Lucky, my next question was the bit, right? Because do you not think that many horses will have the same...
Absolutely.
Like from the past that it has hurt because it really has potential to hurt.
Absolutely.
They will also have emotional baggage, that
memories.
And memories that they will, that they will react to that and think, oh no, this used to hurt, just as well as the stick can.
Contrary to popular belief, I am still really interested in the performance that the horse can give. I'm still really invested in outcomes that are for the well-being of the horse. Training outcomes for their biomechanics, for their behavior, for their mental, emotional, spiritual well-being. I am deeply invested in training for outcomes. when we look to train for outcomes, you have to look at each individual horse, horse by horse by horse, and not approach with methods that annihilate the individual. Methods now, these days, and I train with methods, but my methods are designed to take in the individual, human and horse, into account. So it's not dogma to have a method, right? Now, part of the method is, what does the horse need? And that's comprehensive analysis. What does the horse really need based on what they're struggling with, where they've got strengths and where they've got weaknesses? If I encounter a horse who's got a very specific issue, weakness or trauma or imbalance related to tongue, which is connecting all the way to smooth muscles, the tongue connects all the way to the digestive system. If you've got a horse who's got an issue with the hyoid or the TMJ or the masseter, any of the mastication muscles up in the front end, if you've got a horse with a collapsed abdominal sling or totally disengaged ventral fascial line and ventral muscle chain, not only top line but underline, the bit is the only tool at our disposal where there are no other substitutes, there are no other options. It is the only tool that can access those specific subjects with a horse that requires them. It is the only tool that can. There are ways you could maybe access the TMJ without a bit. Of course there are. There are ways you could work on abdominals without a bit, and we should be. There are ways you can work on the ventral fascia without it. But if you're riding and training a horse for outcomes that are for their well-being, the bit is the best, most precise, only tool that gets directly to it, not indirectly to it. Now, with a stick, there are direct options, not indirect options, direct options. I can point to the hindquarters with a stick, or I point to the hindquarters without the stick. Both are direct communication to the horse, and both require the horse to think, and both require the horse to consider the same body part instantly and immediately, right? I'm not pointing at the forehand to point at the stick at the hindquarters, right? I'm not going about it indirectly. I'm not trying to access the psoas muscle so that I can change the stride of the horse. I'm looking at the stride of the horse and I'm changing the stride of the horse by focusing directly on the stride of the horse. I can do that with a stick or I can do it without. There's a direct ability to drop the stick and you still can have direct training, right? With a bit, I can go about tongue, I can go about hyoid, I can go about TMJ, mastication muscles, ventral fascia, abdominal sling. I can go about those indirectly, but that is inefficient. The bit is the only tool at our disposal that can go about it directly. Having said that, I have a horse at home that has a lot of mouth trauma, a lot. I've got 3 with mouth trauma, but if I talk about Sani for a moment, Caleb actually has a scar across his tongue from a bit, so there will be no bits in his mouth whatsoever. It looks like someone took a branding iron to his tongue. And he's got serraton scars across his nose also. But Sani doesn't have scars on his tongue, but I do have photos of him in the gear he was in his previous home, Pelham, on full leverage with a curb chain, martingale, noseband. And he was inverted, in pain, and running through the hand, bolting. When I got him, I was like, we need to talk about this. I can't leave you in that state. I would just put the bridle on and he would get so agitated, I would take it straight off. 6 months later, I put the bridle back on again. Still agitated, took it back off again. A year and 2 months later, I put the bridle on. He worked his mouth on it. He went, like the sound emus make. That's an Australian reference. It's very specific, but it's like a, it's like a guttural, like where they swallow.
Okay.
And that's when you hear the hyoid drop, the tongue drop, the ventral fascia connect. It's like literally like a clunking sound in their soft tissues. And he went clunk, closed his eyes and took a deep breath and closed his mouth. And I went, now we're ready to talk about it. And at the time, I found some pretty cutting edge techniques from other trainers that they were working on the bits in really interesting roundabout ways. they were going a little bit too far, in my opinion, and they needed to bring some other elements into it. But I've gone about figuring out bits with him in a way that can accesses these body regions: tongue, mastication muscles, hyoid, ventral fascia, abdominal sling, ventral line. I go about training him with awareness of these issues on an extremely infrequent basis. Extremely infrequent basis. I've also worked with a professional bit fitter who spent an hour looking at not only his mouth anatomy, but his entire body anatomy. And out of a selection of 40 bits, she selected 6 that might be appropriate. And then we test rode each bit and found the one that he settled with the most, that fit the best. And that's the bit we use. And so very infrequently, when I need to access this parts of his training, I will put a bit in and I will work with it. And last night I was editing a video where I showed a flow where people can follow along with me, with him, in doing exactly all of this. And I like the results, and I think the horse likes the results, and he is fully rehabilitated to this equipment, but we don't need it for control. We don't need it for safety. We don't need it for basic communication. I ride normally, meaning without a bit. I don't say I ride bitless, because that denotes that you're without something. No, I'm with something. I ride normally, and normal riding, in my opinion, is bitless. Normal riding, in my opinion, is bitless. I think a bit is an addition that is not necessary for many horses, but when it is necessary, it is the only tool that can actually access certain things. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense, but my feeling just is different. I mean, for me, I think I feel the way with a bit that you feel with the stick a little bit.
Yes.
I feel like for me, just putting something inside a horse's mouth is just, I cannot.
You can't go there.
I just cannot.
Well, let me be really clear. I am willing to go there with a stick. I can go there. I allowed you to go there, and I have gone there. And I've said today that there are instances where I would. But generally speaking, I've dropped the stick. I never say never, but generally speaking, I've dropped the stick. And generally speaking, I will use a bit infrequently. For the key point here is that there isn't another piece of equipment that can access this specific part of the body. And it's extremely specific, right?
But could you not say that is still your need to ride that horse and get him to do that specifically? It's not his need. It's something that you want to achieve with him.
So I teach something I call selfless riding, which made 125 people almost lose their mind last year when I introduced the concept again over a 13-week period. Very, very activated concept. Not only concept, but actually a collection of principles and practices that inform selfless riding. I will not ride a horse if I'm getting on them selfishly. And if I, after the fact, realize I was on that horse for selfish reasons, I remember that I was on that horse for selfish reasons, and I deign not to do that again. So if I'm going to get on a horse, it is not for my fun. As I've said before, I'm actually not much fun to be around sometimes, so much so because I'm trying to take care of everything. I'm not trying to center myself. I'm trying to de-center myself. When I ride, it's for their well-being. It's like weightlifting. It's like taking them to the gym. You can do weights without a human, and absolutely, and I do that. I have a setup at home where I can weight a horse's body without a human so that we can access the very specific muscles required for biomechanical health and well-being. You can weight horses. The same reason you would take a human to the gym to lift weights for their health, right? But if the weight is a social partner you love and trust and rely on, that's exponentially more valuable. And if you are a sub-maximal burden that is appropriate for them to be carrying, so you're not overloading the horse, and I have a very specific calculation that I go through to find exactly what a sub-maximal burden is, then proceed. And you work within a biological window, which is 20 minutes or less until the horse reaches 20 minutes without fatigue. If they can reach 20 minutes with zero signs of fatigue, then you can go to 20 and a half minutes. Then you can go to 21 minutes. Then you go to 22. And you build up duration. Even when I go for trail rides now, And I'm the guy who used to ride for 8 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
But when I go for trail rides now, I'm in the saddle for 20 minutes. I'm out of the saddle for 10 to 20 minutes. I'm in the saddle for 20 minutes. I'm out of the saddle for 10 to 20 minutes whilst my horse is building up. So is it my idea to make something out of the horse in my image? Maybe. But the horse is also making something out of my image equally, if not more. I'm bending towards them a little bit more than they're bending towards me almost always. If a horse has a collapsed abdominal sling, that horse is a few years away from lameness in the pasture. Fact. My horse Caleb, totally collapsed abdominal sling. We are in real time watching the collapse of his pasture soundness as we speak. As we speak. Today, I had to intervene with a supplement I've never had to intervene with before. And at 26 years old, it is a downhill slope from here. Now, unfortunately, he is not a candidate for selfless riding under any circumstances because of the way his spine is, because of several pathologies present in his body. There is no situation where he can be ridden by anything less than a small child without his body being in pain every time that happens. So that precludes him from it. There was a time and a place where I was doing weighted two lining with him to bring about change in his abdominal sling. But when we found his sheath tumor, that stops him from engaging his abdominal sling. It's like, well, I can't do anything about that. It's checkmate. So now it's just giving him a track turnout and as much encouraged movement that he's in control of as possible and good hoof care and then glue-on shoes this summer so that he maintains it for as long as he can self-maintain it, but it is a downward slope. But if horse has a collapsed abdominal or thoracic, but I think the abdominal sling is worse because you lose the bridge. But if they have a collapsed abdominal or thoracic sling, you are a sub-maximal burden. You are a trusted, beloved social partner that they understand. You can share their body within an appropriate window and you can change those parts of their body for their long-term soundness. What I'm talking about is dressage. Everyone wake up. Loki's talking about dressage without saying the word dressage. I think dressage has this, at least on paper, in mind. That's what it's supposed to be. It's just mutated into something else now. What I'm saying is I'm actually training dressage, but looking at it like I've wiped the deck clean and said, well, what is dressage without the human culture around dressage now? How do you actually make this happen? You know? And so I'm not trying to create a work of art out of the horse for my own, pleasure.
No, I know
right?
I know you're not. And I understand what you're saying. And I agree with all of that. But for me, I think you're skilled enough to do that without a bit. I think you can.
I'll take that challenge. And actually, I agree with you. I agree with you. And I remain deeply conflicted about bits.
Yeah.
Every day when I walk into my barn and I look at them, I narrow my eyes. I put out a video yesterday about the bit and I called it Our Old Nemesis. On the tutorial, the title of the tutorial is called Revisiting Our Old Nemesis. You see, I don't love them, but I know that it gets directly to the heart of a very specific matter that my Sani is struggling with and that my Sereno is struggling with too. And I think you're skilled enough to train without sticks.
I think you're right.
There you go.
Good challenge.
Yeah. These are the conversations
and most
we
of
have
all,
to
I
be
think
having.
it's wonderful that we can have a conversation about it. It's really nice.
I agree.
And we don't have to agree on everything as long as we talk with each other about it.
Right.
Respectfully.
Right. It's a little bit like being a vegetarian. It's like being Go ahead.
No, I am thinking more about my sticks now after you brought this up.
You're welcome.
Sure, I am. I don't think it means that I'm going to drop them. Well, not right now anyways, but I am thinking more about being even more aware of my body language and, all these things and not depending so much upon it. Sometimes I think it also becomes a habit,
Yeah, an autopilot issue.
And I don't actually really need it that much.
Autopilot.
Yeah. And it's a lot of fun to not use it, it's fun. to see how precise can I be with just my body language and my pointing and all of these things. So thank you for that.
Thank
It's
you.
nice. I do. I really do think about it. So that's good. I still think that it can be used without causing harm.
And I agree with you. I agree with you. But like I've said earlier, you need to make a decision first. You have to get off the fence, and then the nuance follows. When we're on the fence about sticks, what goes wrong there is that someone falls into a cultural predication for something unintentionally, and then very quickly goes on autopilot and or adopts practices that I call parasitic practices. It doesn't belong to you. It's not true and authentic to you. But you kind of adopted it because everyone else is. Yep. Parasitic practices. I've worked with people where I've seen them do stuff or use stuff, and I've gone, that doesn't track with your character. Like, why are you doing it like that? That feels parasitic. Can we take that off? And they go, oh, I wasn't aware. And I'm like, well, exactly. We have to make a decision and get off the fence. Are you for sticks or against sticks generally? And that doesn't mean you have to pick a side and stay there for the rest of your life. You're not signing a 1,000-year contract for your soul. You can change your mind at any moment. We are actually free beings. I want people to know that. And for me, it's a little bit like being a vegetarian, but going with your friends to a steak restaurant. Eat a steak next to me. I'm not going to sit there and look down my nose at you. I don't no problem, right? But I choose to eat this way for my reasons. And you choose to eat that way for your reasons, but we can eat together. And if you're coming to my house, I'm not serving you a steak.
Right. Well, I wouldn't.
But if I go to your house and you give me a steak,
right,
I'm going to politely decline and have the salad instead.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think we have to just allow ourselves to make these decisions and allow ourselves to hold discerning critical thinking, but not judgment.
Yeah. Yes.
And critical thinking is not judgment, by the way.
No.
I'm critical of your use of sticks, but I don't judge you for doing it. Right. You're critical of my use of bits, but you don't judge me for doing it.
Right. That's true.
Thank you, Louise.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you want people to know?
You're a good boy, Lucky. You're a good boy.
Thank you. Click me and give me a carrot. Click. Yeah. Is there anything else you want people to know about these two subjects we've broached today before we finish?
Well, no, I think I've kind of said it. That to me, I think the most important thing is who we are and that we're honest with who we are.
Yes.
And everything else is add-ons to that. And then we must make decisions which tools we want to use and what feels right and what feels okay. And I think in the end, the horses are better off if we're honest with ourselves.
Yes.
And I think that they can also deal with all our mistakes and all our things if they are genuinely loved, And and I don't mean everybody says they love their horses, but I mean genuinely, really from the heart, taken good care of, And I do use positive reinforcement. I use food rewards every day in my training.
Me too. Me too.
Part of my language. But it's not the only language.
Please tell people where they can find you if they want to connect with you, because you travel for hoof trimming clinics, you travel for training within Europe. And do you do online services, online lessons or coaching?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Super. Where can people connect with you?
Through my website. Find my contact details there. It's rebelhorsecare.eu.
Rebelhorsecare.eu. Rebelhorsecare.eu. We'll have that in the show notes for people to find.
I'm working on creating a video library, actually. That's what I'm spending my time doing now.
Oh, baby, it's so much work. It's so much
work.
Yeah.
That's something I'm trying to get done.
Super exciting. And they can follow you on Instagram and Facebook as well.
Yes.
Love it. Well, you have my full endorsement, and I don't give that lightly anymore.
Oh, thank you.
I really don't, because I've endorsed people in the past and then saw a video where I was like, what the hell is going on? But I, as a trainer and a professional, you have my full endorsement.
Thank you, Lucky.
Whatever that means, that might mean nothing to someone, but
I hope it
means something to
well,
somebody.
It means a lot to me.
Well,
yeah.
I want to thank you again for all the work you did with Oki, because he's fabulous.
Yeah. Cheeky little monkey.
Cheeky monkey. And he's just going to be so much fun to have in my life.
Yeah.
God knows I need it. Thank you so much. And have a lovely rest of your day. My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. You've been listening to the Emotional Horsemanship podcast. That was my guest, Louise Bach-Holler. And I am your host, Lockie Phillips. Thank you for listening. Please remember to subscribe to this podcast. And if you could leave a review of this podcast on your podcast app, that would really, really go far to help me. If you'd like to sign up for Homecoming 3.0, a deep dive in community over 3 months into questions around pressure in training, then you can find the link in the notes or the description of this podcast. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care now.